People who have had friends stab you in the back. What is the story? My wife said she needed some time for herself, so she went to stay at her mom's for a while. One day I went to pick up my kids and walked in on her and my best friend having sex. Turns out it had been going on for a while and she knew him before she knew me, which I had no clue about. This would prompt me to conduct a DNA test on the kids. I hope the results don't break your heart. Friend told me they weren't doing anything for their birthday. On the day of their birthday, photos appeared on Facebook of them out with the rest of our friends. They're not my friends anymore. My husband and I, had a friend that we helped get back on his feet. Paid off some tickets he had. Got his license reinstated. Hooked him up with a solid connection for a reasonable, well-running car to replace his beater, and gave him a place to live and a job. Automotive repair. He decided it was a better choice to tell all our customers we were overcharging them. Spoiler, we weren't, and he'd do the jobs cheaper if they'd bring it to him at his house. This was a short time after he moved out of our house. After never repaying anything he owed us. Not that we'd asked. Broke my heart. Some will take as much as they possibly can. I booked a table for 6 people to watch a sports event at a bar. I tell them so. All 5 friends say okay, we will be there. No one shows up or even has the decency call or text that they were not coming. Yeah? Not cool. Silver lining. This was the easy way to find out they're not your friends. Look at all the lend money and never saw it back. Ducked me wife tried to heal me. etc. Comments here. Had a good bud of mine, who's the godfather of my son, living with me and my wife. I travel a lot for work, and was out of the country for about 6 months in the Middle East. Came back and found out she was pregnant, with twins, and that they weren't mine. I share your pain there. It's like a truck when that happens. My best friend since 4th grade. Called her my soul sister. I genuinely was so grateful to have what I thought our friendship was. She fell on hard times, got weirdly religious, and stopped working while going to private uni. I was always there for her. Shoulder to cry on. Visited her all the time because she didn't have any friends and I knew she was lonely. Helped her with groceries and rent. Helped her family out. One day she came over and after buying her groceries, she told me a higher power has been telling her to cut me off for 2 years and she had to listen. Now she wants to be friends again. It's a hard nope from me, dog. To be fair, sounds like mental illness. He thought the Q&A I had in my room was fake and threw it to my backle mayo. Never lend a friend money, especially if they still haven't paid you back from anything else they owe you. People always say this. A friend of mine have lent each other money in small amounts often over the years. In our early 20s there'd be lots of times I'd be flat broke and he'd have some cash and vice versa for going out. We'd always pay each other back. I've also needed larger amount. For example, about $800 to cover rent when I was in a bad spot. Paid him back. Neither of us have any family who would lend us money. Recently, because of a bunch of stuff he needed me to pay for his tuition for some classes he's talking, which was about $5,000. It took him about a year, but just made his last payment. Without us doing this, there would have been lots of times we'd have just been ducked. He accused me of sexually assaulting his younger sister, who was basically my little sister too. At the time. It's completely false and it's the most mind-boggling thing that's ever happened to me. Did they have anything to gain from it? I learned at a young age that people suck. My stepmom and dad tried to claim my grandpa raped me, just so they could use that in court to get custody of me. It really took a toll on my grandpa, who did nothing wrong. Not to my knowledge. I mean, he gained not having me as a friend anymore, which I assume is the reason he did what he did. It was a one-way friendship and I should have ended the friendship way before, but I was younger and naive. I'm really sorry that happened to the both of you. That's so ducked up and I hope things worked out for you guys. The person who stabbed me in the back wouldn't dare try to take it to court or try anything like that because it would fail miserably for them. friend only listened to me to tell all of my secrets and spread rumors about me. Fun times. I can relate. I ended up ruining my friend's future afterwards though. I had some friends who were always talking crap about me, found out from another good friend, and one day I came to school in my brand new jeans that costed around 150 euros and they put glue on my chair while I was in the bathroom. I sat on it. I asked which one of them did it. None of them said a word. We went to the principal's office and these pos had the gonads to say that I put it there to get them in trouble. Their parents were called and I earned around 200 euros and a new pair of jeans. I see this as an absolute win. In 7th grade she wrote a 10-page letter on all the reasons I should heal myself. And had all but one of my friends sign an agreement after I confided in her that I felt like something was wrong with me, early and diagnosed depression. Go figure. The day she gave it to me was arguably the worst day of my life at the point because my parents told my sister and I that they were considering divorce. And my grandmother died. I am so sorry, what a horrible day. How are you doing now? My parents ended up solving their issues and are happier than ever. I've been in therapy for a while and it's had wonderful results along with a pretty good mood stabilizer. I'm happier and healthier than I've ever been. And honestly the best thing for me was to completely cut her out of my life. Everyone that signed an agreement has long since cut contact with her and apologized to me. For several years, I was best friends with 2 other girls in my elementary school. We always hung out together at school and outside of school. When I was 10, I befriended a nice boy in my class and rumors started circling that he was my boyfriend. He was not. However, they got jealous that I was spending time with him and befriended some kids who liked to tease me. Then, word got around that I had started my period and apparently this was hilarious and also conclusive proof that I could no longer be friends with them. So one day after school those girls and their new friends ganged up on me and tried to beat me up to signal the end of our friendship. Then, when I was 11 I attended a new school. And I became friends with these girls who were really nice to me. I was the only foreigner in the class and it was a bit difficult for me to adjust. So I was grateful that some students were being welcoming. They invited me to a sleepover to celebrate one girl's birthday. And they sexually assaulted me by groping me and trying to forcibly undress me despite my protests. Obviously, I was massively disturbed. And after that, kept my distance. Then they had the audacity to ask why I was ignoring them. I don't know. Because you clearly have no respect for me or my bodily autonomy? When you have multiple instances of friends harming you and betraying your trust during a pivotal point in your childhood, it seriously damages your ability to connect with others or maintain a healthy self-image. Around March I was happily walking along to see my boys to discuss how we were going to continue implementing various ideas and whatnot. I got to the meeting place and my peeps were all smiles and then one of them grabbed my tunic and ripped it off and then they all surrounded me and started stabbing my back. And the dude I thought was my closest homie looked me in the eyes as he did it. Ducking Brutus, I trusted you bro. IDK if this counts, but it hurt. In HS I had who I thought was my best friend. Almost inseparable. Our favorite band at the time was Good Charlotte and they were on tour. She got tickets and forced a third-party friend who didn't even like them to go with her instead of me. Not saying she owed me. But if it was me, I would take my best friend who likes the band instead of someone who doesn't want to be bothered. It always sat wrong with me. Their high school is full of those petty moments. I don't think people do it on purpose. They just have little awareness of how people are affected by the things they do. Most PPL on HS are too focused on themselves or the short-term benefits of a situation. I had one friend who honestly wasn't my favorite person because she was really manipulative. But I never said anything bad about her. I found out that she had been sheet-talking me to all of our mutual friends and telling them all that I did horrible things that I never did. Ended up essentially being pushed out of that entire friend group and it ruined a lot of my high school experience. Village gossips. Personally I'm just happy I'm not part of that miserable group anymore. As one wise man said, empty can rattles the most. Was at a party with my cousin and his friends. I just moved so I didn't know them or anyone at the party. I start talking to this really pretty girl. We wander away from the party and start talking. Really hit it off. We kiss some and then head back. My ugly is excited and nervous. We drink some more, she gets more and more physical. We move to bedroom. Right when I go to close the door, my cousin's buddy comes up and say they need me. I'm like alright, so we start walking. I turn back and see my cousin and one of his friends go in the room behind me. I was like, hey, my cousin just went in that room. Dude straight up tells me my cousin likes her and he was told to get me away from her. I go back to the room, it's been a couple minutes. They have her spit roasted. Didn't learn my lesson, took another 6 months for me to finally cut him and his sheet friends out of my life. A guy who seemed like a good mate when it was just us. And then as soon as there was someone else. Or a group. He took the piss out of me and tried to make me the butt of all jokes. Even worse if there were girls around. After a while. I called him out on it. And he was just like, dude. It's just a joke. But I was done with him after that. I saw him randomly earlier this year. After years of no contact. And it was amicable. And we caught up a bit on how we're getting on with our lives. And while he has grown up and become a bit more grounded, there's been no intention of rebuilding a bridge. I think if I ever met someone who has that side to their personality, I'd drop them like a hot potato. My douchebag of a brother did this to his best friend, all of them. After about 6 years of this, his friend couldn't stand it anymore and cut my brother off. My brother is so arrogant. He still can't see the problem. Edit, recorrected autocorrect. Grew up going to the same church and met my friend and her family when I was 14. We grew up together. Hung out and our families would be together all the time. Fast forward many years and I am dating a guy that I fell in love with for almost 3 years at the time. He went to ND to the oil fields for work. I went to visit him and could tell something was off a bit. Took the train from my town to Williston, 22 hours to get there. Visited him for 5 days and on the last day he gets up and goes to shower. I grab his phone. We had an open policy with each other that either could be on each other's phones. I found the emails between my friend and him. My family still hangs out with her family and her. I refuse to be around or speak to her. Probably better to cut her off. Oh, I have, but my mom still tries to get me to speak with her because she wants to apologize. She knew she was wrong and blah blah blah, but I don't feel the need for an apology. I just don't want her anywhere near me or my life. In college, my best friend and I had an art class together with a guy I was hanging out with on the regular, getting to know each other to see if there was anything more there. He and I hung out. Messed around. Had fun. etc. Nothing formal or spoken just yet, but we communicated daily. We were more than friends. But not a dedicated couple. One day I stopped by his house after a morning class for a reason that I forget. Knocked. No answer. So I let myself in the unlocked door. Small Kansas town. Nobody locks anything, so I could leave him a note. Pre-cell phones texting. At least for me. Well, her purse was on the chair by the door. Nobody answered when I called out his name. Or hers. His car was there. Her purse was there. They were there. Ugh. I got back at her though. Almost 20 years later, she friend requested me on Facebook and I denied that itch. Take that. Jessica. Were you two supposed to be exclusive? Or you are super interested in him and she is aware? I mean, I'm not understanding very well where the more than friends but not couple stands in the relationship spectrum. I have Asperger's and as a result I seem to attract narcissists. Both my best friend in high school and my first wife were narcissists. My wife and I were having issues and we decided to try a trial separation. My high school friend slept with my wife 2 days after we separated. At the time I thought it was a backstabbing. But years later realized it was a gift. As I had a reason to cut to toxic people out of my life. What's the connection between Asperger's and attracting narcissists? I'm not skeptical. Purely curiosity. I was taking a culinary class with my buddy and he walked behind me with a knife and didn't say anything. I stepped back and got mildly stabbed in the lower back. After 10 years of friendship you think you know a guy. Cannot say we were friends when I think of it. But he was someone I hang with. I was bullied in school. Basically, I did not know how to defend myself. So it was sort of a love-hate relationship. At lunchtime, I was going to get my lunch as usual. Started to see kids throwing food around the hallway. I did not bother until I saw that my lunch was the one being thrown around the hallway. My sandwich. My food. Everything. They were all cheering. When I went to get my lunch back, or what was left of it, I was about to pick it up and my friend took the lunch out of my hands and threw it back in the party. He actually took the lunch out of my closet when I wasn't there and started this whole mess. I just left crushed. I think that ended the relationship. XD. I had a best friend that I knew for 16 years. She got pregnant and her parents tried to kick her out. Her parents wanted her to get an abortion but she refused. One of our HS friends told me someone should push her down a flight of stairs so she can miscarry. I told her that's a very bad idea and offended my best friend. The next day, the principal came by my class to ask me if I could attend a meeting about something important. If I didn't attend, I was going to be expelled. When I arrived to the meeting, our shared friend claimed I was going to shove my best friend down flights of stairs so she can miscarry. My best friend believed her. We stopped talking after that. I took his chips. He stabbed me with a plastic knife. We're still friends though. At the beginning of summer going into high school, my two friends and I were left alone at my buddy's house. We snuck into his parents' liquor cabinet and all tasted some vodka. Being that it was my first time tasting hard liquor, I took one sip and instantly disliked it. I decided to not drink anymore because it was gross. One of my friends started pounding shots even though it was his first time drinking. He had maybe 4 shots and started feeling tipsy. We proceeded to marvel at his drunken self for the rest of the night. Fast forward 2 weeks and I'm riding in the car with my mom. She begins to ask me if I have anything I want to tell her, and like any 13-year-old in my position I said no. She then goes on a rant about how disappointed she is in me for drinking alcohol at my friend's house and proceeds to ground me for basically the entire summer. Come to find out, my friend who got drunk started feeling guilty and told his mom what he did. He was a spoiled kid and his mom didn't punish him, while I on the other hand got grounded for taking one sip. Strict parents, man. Her BF sexually assaulted me and she told me that she needed space. Never talked to her again. I remember I got a holographic Charizard when I was a kid and I was so excited to show it off at school the next day. Then, about halfway through the day, it goes missing. I looked everywhere and I could not find it and was super bummed out. The very next day this kid named Marcello, who I thought was a friend, shows up with his own Charizard. I couldn't prove it was mine. I knew in my heart that it was. The timing was just too convenient that I lost mine and then he gets one. My mother told me she was sick of being with dad. She told me a bunch of things he'd done which made her afraid of him. She asked me to tell a few of her close friends about how she was being treated, because she wanted them to understand why she was leaving. Then she decided to stay with him. So she told her friends that she had no idea what was wrong with me, but they should pray for me because it looked like I was going through something. My own mother stabbed me in the back. Years ago when I did a health sciences undergraduate degree, most of the cohort was determined to get into medical school. Our medical school program mainly accepted students from only our competitive undergraduate course. Due to subject prerequisites, we all knew each other and were friendly, hanging out together and forming study groups. Many of my friends were great. We shared tips, resources, practiced exams and interviews together. But there were a handful who really wanted to get into medical school. And since the program ranks applicants mainly based on undergraduate results, the better your friends perform, the lower your ranking is for selection. So near application time, some of us would head off to the university library to borrow out textbooks to find chapters or page numbers that the lecturer mentioned would be on the exam. And they would be ripped out. You'd go and find another library copy of the textbook. And that page would be ripped out too. All of them. Totally removed in a hurry. I didn't believe that someone from our cohort did it. Until interview practice began. Students began obtaining copies of the questions from previous years and lying when others asked if they had it. I saw someone give a terrible, awful interview answer and the other student would give them glowing feedback and inform them they should say that word for word during the interview. It was a ritual and a lot of relationships fell apart. Or were never the same again. My team and I had to push the cart to the enemy base. It was just me and the heavy pushing as everyone else had to go to push back the enemy team. Then a medic appeared. The heavy and I were injured and we needed healing. We were going to be saved. But then he pulled out a knife and stabbed us in the back. It wasn't the medic. It was the enemy spy. The last thing I heard him said was, "I never really was on your side." I decided to be friends with this girl that was crying. Was okay at first. Then she started to show signs of being crazy. She wouldn't let me hang out with anyone else and when I said that I would be right back, I had to use the bathroom. She started to cry and say that I would leave her. I, being naive AF, decided to stay with her. This continued until she literally punched one of my friends cause I decided to hang out with them for a day instead of her. I tried to break it off. But then she wouldn't let me. She eventually threatened to kill me and our parents got involved. The principal too.